Well, that's a business. So how do they make money? Incarceration.
I said, I won't be able to buy out. It'll be $2,300 cash bond.
Everybody deserves as many chances as they can get.
The person that's living next door to you now is not the same person that went into jail. I've lived here all my life. I was born in a little town called Hornbeak and became a judge in 2009. Well, I think we're like everywhere, but certainly like all rural communities. Almost everybody that we deal with in the criminal justice system are here because of drugs or alcohol. It may be that they have an addiction and they need money to buy drugs and alcohol, so they end up committing crimes, mainly thefts. Or it may be that they're using drugs and alcohol and they're under the influence and they commit crimes. But when it gets right back down to it, most people who commit crimes in Obion County, and I suspect other rural areas and probably everywhere, commit them because the root of that are drugs and alcohol. In many cases, drugs and alcohol go hand in hand with mental health issues, so they have what we call co-occurring disorders. And so somebody who has a mental health disorder ideally would not be in jail. They would be either in a mental health facility or at least getting outpatient mental health treatment. Well, we're working toward helping people in jail with those struggles, and we're doing a lot better job of it. But the reality is that they almost need to be out of jail to get the treatment that they need. When I went on the bench, we encountered what we call preset bonds. If you had a disorderly conduct, it was X number of dollars. If you had a theft, it was Y number of dollars. If you had a possession of drugs, it was Z number of dollars. People had a preset bond, and you didn't look at the individual factors relating to the people that were involved. And that was something that I wanted to do differently. To begin with, even though it's not quite as commonplace as it used to be, most judges know the people in their community. In rural areas, if you don't know the particular individual before you, you know some of his family or some of his associations. You probably know if he went to school at one of the local schools or if he's worked at one of the local employers. So we have a pretty good feel of folks that we're dealing with. And so we just developed an individual approach to look at factors relating to each individual. So what we started to do 10 plus years ago is to look not only at the individual, but to look at the crime, look at the things we could do beyond the money aspect of things in order to get people into the treatment they needed on one hand and avoiding additional crimes on the other hand. So we decided that if it was somebody that had a tie to the community we felt like would show up in court, then we could start addressing the treatment earlier and deal with it that way so that we could release them on their own recognizance. But as a condition of that release, they had to go into treatment or have an alcohol and drug assessment or be under an order granting bail to have no contact with the alleged victim, and do any number of things, but at the same time address the underlying criminal issue, which again, as I said in the beginning, is usually drugs and alcohol. And I've got a dad who's 91 years old, an incredible person. But, you know, he's old school, and he's of the philosophy that if somebody did the crime, they ought to do the time. You lock them up, you throw away the key, and they pay their debt to society. And what we find with recovery court and treatment is that these folks are coming back into the community. It's not a matter of if they're coming back, it's when they're coming back. Whether it's a day or a week or a month or a year or 3 years in jail, those people are coming back out of jail, and they're going back to be your next door neighbor or live across the street from you or go have kids that go to school where your kids go. And they're coming right back into the community that they left by and large. And generally, incarceration makes a better criminal than it does a better citizen. If we don't rehabilitate people and treat people, then they're coming out of incarceration a better criminal than they went into jail as. And if they're a better criminal and that's their livelihood and they're still dealing with drugs and alcohol, then they're more likely to make the community worse rather than to make it better. But if we can rehabilitate them and they're living in the community with you, then you're going to be, one, a better community, two, a safer community, and three, they may end up being people that become your friends or acquaintances because the person that's living next door to you now is not the same person that went into jail. I have a judge friend that I met early when I went on the bench. He says, and this has always stuck with me, lock up the people that you're scared of, not the people you're mad at. And for so long in the criminal justice system, what we have done is locked up the people we're mad at. They stole something, and granted they shouldn't have stole it, and there are consequences. They used drugs, granted they shouldn't have used drugs, and there are consequences, and we'll deal with it. But by and large, there are people we're mad at. They're not people who've killed somebody, who have committed terrible, serious crimes that should be locked up. And not that there aren't consequences, and jail is one of those consequences, but people who we're mad at because they've done something wrong. It is incredibly important that we deal with the other issues they're facing. We need to be working on making them better citizens, or at least rehabilitating them so they have the potential to be good citizens, and then the chances of them coming back to jail are reduced astronomically.